everyone. I hope you all are having a great week so far. For those that celebrate, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving and just a few days off last week. The top things that we want you to know today and for this week today is Giving Tuesday. Uh, the second thing is we want you to register for our end of year policy update webinar happening this Thursday, December 4th at 1:30. We're going to give you some updates about the cuts to the Continuum of Care grant program and some actions that are being taken. And then an update on the latest settlement with North Carolina's largest landlord in the RealPage lawsuit. So first things first, it is Giving Tuesday. And we really invite you to be at home for hope and contribute to the movement. Threats to housing this year have been increasingly severe, but the work that you do remains vital. You all are the cornerstone of our movement, and your donation today and any day supports things like Housing Call, our research, the policy advocacy that we're able to do, and it helps keep our work going and carries it into 2026. I know that it's only 9:46 right now in the morning, and I have already received 12 emails about Giving Tuesday, so I want to recognize that. I know there is a lot bidding for our attention, but it's been quite the year, and no matter who you are and where you live, it has been a time. And so, as a coalition, I think it's important to note that, we include organizations and individuals across our state and our housing ecosystem. And even though we may not always agree on everything 100% or even at all sometimes, if you believe to any degree that every North Carolinian deserves a safe, stable place to call home with dignity and opportunity, then we agree on the most important part. So if you are open and able and willing to donate and contribute today for Giving Tuesday, or are interested in other ways to support our organization, we're going to provide a link in the call notes for you to donate. If you're a part of an organization that requires an invoice, if you want to give a contribution, we'll put the contact information for our development director, Jessica Griffin, in the call notes for you as well. So thank you all for your support this year and your continued support, and hopefully we can continue fighting the good fight. This Thursday, December 4th, from 1:30 to 3 p.m., hopefully we can end a little bit before 3, we will be having a virtual end-of-year policy update webinar. Myself and our executive director, Samuel Gunter, will be taking us through the ride that has been this year. And since January, we've had a lot of unprecedented federal policy changes that have really upended our housing ecosystem. And the impacts have ranged, right? It's ranged from cost of construction to families' abilities to access essential programs and resources. And then at the state level, with the still absence and lack of a budget, it's put essential housing funds in jeopardy, which puts housing in jeopardy. So this end of year policy update, we're going to review a lot of those changes and events that have happened throughout the year on the federal and state housing policy level, the funding so far, examine the current and ongoing threats, but also highlight ongoing advocacy opportunities and explore how we can prepare and how we're trying to prepare for 2026. So the registration link will be in the call notes for you as well, if you are interested. Moving on to federal updates. The Continuum of Care Notice of Funding Opportunity was released 2 weeks ago now. And last week, a bipartisan group of 20 states, North Carolina is currently not one of them, filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration for the unlawful funding restrictions placed on the Continuum of Care grant program. These changes are going to drastically reduce permanent housing funding and actually shift that funding to transitional housing with work requirements. And this is a decision that, based on current estimates, the folks over at the Department of Housing and Urban Development could put more than 170,000 people at risk of homelessness. And then yesterday, both the National Alliance to End Homelessness and the National Low Income Housing Coalition announced that they have also joined a similar lawsuit brought on by a coalition of nonprofits and cities. The call to action here is coming from our partners at the National Alliance to End Homelessness, and they're calling on advocates to contact their members of Congress and ask them to take action to stop these changes to the Continuum of Care grant program. If you want to learn a bit more about the impacts of these restrictions and these policy changes, we'll have links to deeper dives as well as data on how this could impact the work of folks in the housing and homelessness space. But it is a really, really critical time to speak up and to continue engaging. Last week, our North Carolina Attorney General, our North Carolina Attorney General Jeff Jackson and 8 other bipartisan state attorney generals reached a $7 million settlement with Greystar Management LLC, which is North Carolina's largest landlord with more than 25,000 units across the state. Our Attorney General sued Greystar and other landlords in January for illegally working together and using RealPage's AI software to raise North Carolinians' rents an exorbitant amount. And as part of the settlement, Greystar will stop using the non-public data from other landlords, either through RealPage's software or by other means, to set rents. And then early in October, Greystar also settled a class action lawsuit with renters for about $50 million. Moving to legislative updates, we have a few important legislative candidate filing deadlines this week, so should see a lot of news that way of who's seeking reelection, who is not seeking reelection. There continues to be a stalemate on the budget front, and it's really around safety nets, taxes, Medicaid, and different intersections of those issues. There are several bills that came into effect yesterday, December 1st, and this includes the Arenas Law. It's a measure that limits pretrial release options for those accused of violent crimes. And then this bill was signed into law in October, so it went into effect yesterday. There is also another criminal justice law, the Public Safety Act, which creates new felonies and ramps up the severity of other felonies and other penalties. Other laws taking effect, there is a squatter removal law that went into effect yesterday. Allows property owners to pursue an expedited process to remove squatters from their property. The non-discrimination in disaster recovery there makes it a felony to discriminate based on political affiliation while providing disaster recovery assistance. There is a nonprofits records disclosure piece of legislation that bars public agencies from collecting or releasing unnecessary information about donors, members, or volunteers. And then there is a piece of legislation that makes a number of changes to the licensure, certification, and other regulations for continuing care retirement communities. So we have a link in the call notes for that piece that kind of goes through those various elements. On the disaster recovery front, it is the last month of the year, which is crazy to think about, but as a reminder, the Renew North Carolina Single Family Housing Program will be accepting applications until the end of this month. This program is a centralized housing rehab and reconstruction or replacement program that's going to prioritize low to moderate income families with seniors age 62 and older, children and or disabled household members that have been impacted by Hurricane Helene. We have toolkits in both English and Spanish for you in the call notes, media kit, as well as contact information and other resources if you have questions. A lot of great, interesting state and local headlines, ranging from how cities and counties are turning public land into public-private partnerships for affordable and workforce housing, large numbers of investment in community projects, and then a large call for more partnership and more action to address affordable housing shortages across our state. Moving on to the reports, events, and resources for the folks that love data like I do and like this tool. It's a really wonderful tool. The National Housing Preservation Database has actually recently been refreshed to provide the latest data to preserve affordable homes across the country. So this is a really helpful database. It shows the remaining time on a subsidy for homes across the country, what types of subsidy, when they expire, when they went into effect, and other key notes and things like that. Also, there has been a recent report released and sent to Congress on the worst case housing needs. And this has been sent over, but done in partnership with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. This report was first released in 1973, and it's usually released every 2 years and draws on data from the American Housing Survey that's funded by HUD and conducted by the Census Bureau. Just two main findings from this year's report is that economic growth has been insufficient to lift the wages of low-income renting families high enough to make their rent affordable. And looking at the national macroeconomic policies, such as record immigration and deportation and different things like that, this combination, as well as the volatility in our market and our political climate combined, really have had an impact on communities. We've seen an increase in high rental demand, and this continues to place upward pressure on cost of living. Another data update from the U.S. Census Bureau. They have developed data products that help us understand a bit better the impact and recovery efforts for Hurricane Helene in those disaster declared counties. One of the products in particular is the Census Bureau's Assessment, Recovery, and Evaluation Data Set, or their CREs or CAREs. And this data set allows users to find relevant information about not only the population, but the disaster exposure and recovery kind of all in one place. So it'll be really important to see as recovery continues, how this data is able to capture that and continue to give a more accurate picture of what is going on with our friends and family in Western North Carolina. We are still going to be including community resources around knowing your rights, because we advocate for affordable housing and want to see safe, healthy, living, and thriving communities in North Carolina. So any operations that include racial profiling or targeted public harassment and arrests by masked agents that only instills fear and jeopardizes the safety and livelihoods of our neighbors. So we're going to keep those Know Your Rights resources that we included in our housing call 2 weeks ago. And we're going to continue to provide information and figure out how to support partners on the ground working with folks and those living with the impacts of these operations on our communities. Lots of webinars. I already mentioned that we're having our end of year policy update webinar this Thursday. There's also a Q4 policy update happening today with the National Women's Affordable Housing Network. It's a virtual session. There is a cost for non-members, and it's at noon. If you are a WAN member, you receive a discount. So there should be a discount code in your inbox. The policy update will feature affordable housing experts Emily Caddick and Jennifer Schwartz. If you didn't get to hear Jennifer speak at the conference, it was amazing. Another webinar I want to lift up, and this is both personal and professional, personal and professional interest, but if you or anyone you know are interested, still confused, seeking more information around student loan forgiveness, there is going to be a webinar hosted by Public Service Promise and NBC tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. It's free, it's virtual. It's an expert-led webinar with Sabrina McGee that is geared towards nonprofit members or staff and will explain updates, not only from the policy side, but also tips on how to obtain student loan relief through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. And with that, I will let you all go. I hope you have a great rest of your week. As always, please don't hesitate to reach out. Let us know if you want us to share any information or dive into something in particular. Thank you again for any time and consideration you put into supporting us, reading our resources, or as it's Giving Tuesday, if you consider and decide to donate, we really appreciate you and look forward to continuing to grow this movement together. We'll talk to you next time.